Hey ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Adrian here for Digital Dojos, and today we're going to be talking all about iOS 18. So earlier this week, Apple had its WWDC, or Worldwide Developer Conference for 2024, where they kind of highlight a lot of the new software features coming out for their platforms, such as macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and nowadays all sorts of different OSs from Vision OS and so on. But today I primarily want to focus on iOS 18, and with that, just my initial insights on iOS 18 for the iPhone. I've yet to test this out on iPadOS. The latest macOS Sequoia is still going to be coming out later on. So I've been on the developer beta since it launched a couple of days ago, and I've just been kind of testing it out on my daily driver of a phone. I remember years ago where that would be a thing where it'd be almost sacrilegious, or you would have to have a test phone because it could be so buggy. And I've definitely experienced a couple things that I've noticed right off the bat, but I want to kind of go through the features and just highlight some of my general experience and my insight into the features. First up, I will say this is not something that you'll necessarily notice on screen, but animation wise, I don't know if it's necessarily a bug or if they just slowed down and changed the animation speed in iOS 18, but it's just a little bit more I wouldn't say smooth. It just feels a little bit more slightly sluggish, but it's one of those things I think that takes getting used to. I remember way back in the day when you would jailbreak iOS, one of the main things I would do to make the phone feel faster was increase the animation speed. And it's crazy how much of a mind trick that does, because even though the phone's not necessarily running faster, just changing the animation speed can change a lot of perception on the overall speed of this. But with that, let's jump into the iOS preview window, and I want to kind of go through some of the features as I also choose to highlight them here on my phone. Obviously, the big one that was talked about that is not officially out yet, because this is going to come in fall, is the Apple Intelligence, or as it's aptly named, AI. This is just Apple's whole AI tie-in to their whole iOS operating system, and it's really going to be built on top of Siri and act as an overall assistant to all of your data and integration through the iOS ecosystem. There's a lot to it. It's going to be a whole new era of Siri, especially with Siri falling so far behind. This is supposed to be Apple's real kind of tie-in to the AI age. It also has integration with ChatGPT. It's going to be able to generate images for you, and help you write prompts and text, all sorts of stuff. Get access to things like your calendar, emails, all with a basis on privacy. So that was the big thing that Apple was trying to tout, was AI has to be convenient but still having privacy at its core. So I can't speak too much to this just yet because obviously it's not officially out. So move on a little bit from that. Next up, I want to talk about customization. This is the funny one because, again, going back to the days of jailbreaking, this is the main reason you would jailbreak. And iOS has been out for 18 iterations until it's taken us to get the ability to do basic customizations on the home screen here. So what I mean by that is you have the ability now to finally move icons freely on your home screen. And what that means is you don't have to subscribe to this basic grid. You don't have to have blank fake web pages or icons. You can literally just move icons where you want. Now, it still exists in a grid-like fashion. You can't necessarily move them freely, but you can kind of design patterns. You can put widgets all over your screen. So that's the idea here. If you want to really kind of customize your home screen, I could drop a widget in here, for example, add the widget, and then kind of have that be, the main focus, or versus the standard kind of locked to grid pattern that you might be used to with iOS. This offers a little bit more customization. And in this case, a little bit goes a long way with iOS, since this has been a thing that's, hasn't been doable for so long. Now, outside of just the icon customization, you do get new features to customize your overall screen. So you can choose between these large or small icons, and it looks like with the larger ones, it completely takes away the text. I actually like this look. It gives it a little bit more of that minimal look. So this is something that I might test out. You can see there it takes a little bit to load those new icons there. But outside of that, you can also, don't want to add a widget here. Customize. You can also change the kind of theme of the icon. So you can set it to automatic, where it determines the kind of time of day and adjust your icons appropriately. This is more prominent on the stock icons here. So let me go to my main homepage here and hit edit, customize, you'll see if I go dark, it's going to adjust, or I guess all my photos, icons, camera, they're already dark. If I go to light, it's going to adjust those to kind of the standard. Automatic, like I said, will change depending on time of day. Or you can go for this tinted look where it completely just kind of grayscales all of your icons, and then you can adjust to match a specific theme or color. So again, this is the quote-unquote customization that Apple is referencing. We saw a lot of this like on their home screen where they try to match your home screen to like a theme. But hey, I guess something's better than nothing. The idea here is you can also use like an eyedrop tool if you want it to match like your wallpaper or something to that effect. You can also adjust kind of like that dark mode kind of background. So again, I'm going to leave mine at automatic for the time being, but you do have a little bit more customization. You can kind of customize each of your home screens here. Now, is this true all-out customization for compared to things like Android or even jailbroken iPhones? No, but it's a step forward. We're not seeing like true custom icons just yet and all of that nature, but I'll take something rather than nothing. But it is kind of crazy to think how long iOS has been around, and like this is considered like a major feature nowadays for something like that. But yeah, that is the idea behind customization. One other thing I did want to mention here with customization is the ability to now hide app icons. This is more so if you just, you want to hide something that you don't want people seeing for whatever reason. You've been able to hide photos, you've been able to hide other stuff in iOS, but now you can do it with apps. So for example, if I didn't want people knowing or seeing the X icon, which is Twitter, but doesn't look like it's a Twitter icon or a social media icon, you can hit require Face ID when you hold on it, and then you'll see the option. I believe it has to be supported for certain apps. You can hide and require Face ID. And what that's going to do if you do that, one, it requires your Face ID to open the app in general, but then it'll completely hide the icon. Let's go ahead and just do it real quick just for the sake of it. Hide and require Face ID. I'm going to line it up to my face. And then it's going to hide the app. You can see it completely disappears, and the only way you can access that app is if you go into your app library and you scroll all the way down. You now have this hidden icon, and if I click on that, I need to use Face ID or my passcode to unlock it, and now I can access that app. Again, if I want to take that away, don't require Face ID. Plug in my code, and boom, that goes back to the home screen. So you can now, whoops, it looks like I went all the way to my far right, I'm assuming. Yeah, I need to organize my apps here. But yeah, that would allow me to then, there you go. Let's find out where did it put the Twitter icon? It disappeared. So what it ended up doing is it took the Twitter icon and it put it in the social folder. Now I need to drag that all the way back. So that's fun. All right, going back to the page here, you can see some of the ideas you can kind of do for customization. They also talk about their update to Control Center and the more customization that you have there, which I also want to showcase. So if I flip back to my phone here we are in the main screen. If I flip down here to go into Control Center, you can see that we have a new kind of interface with Control Center. You now have different control centers that you can swap between and or customize. This is kind of like your main one, which is kind of your favorite. So this is what you want your quickest access to in toggles. But you can now swipe up to, for example, I can see my audio-based control center, or I can see my toggle-based control center, which is all of my like networking related stuff. I can see the other one I set up for my Apple Home control center. So this makes it a little bit more organized rather than having everything all over. You can kind of do it by category, which I'm a big fan of. One thing I will say is like I feel like, yeah, you can see it there. There's always a little bit of, anytime you go back to that main favorites, and I think it's because there's so many toggles, there's a little bit of that animation lag. So again, this is the iOS 18 beta, so expect things like that, but just something to note there. Going back to customizations, there's a couple other things that, or I just say feature-wise, the Photos app got completely kind of like a nice fresh coat of paint and some like more convenience features here. And I'll go ahead and open my Photos app. I want to be mindful, not because of that, but more so because I want to respect other people's privacy. You can see here in your Photos app, it kind of has a whole new theme where it kind of categorizes, and this will eventually tie into the whole Apple Intelligence, where it can show you different things like recent days, peoples and pets, and kind of identify that based on like facial recognition. pinned collections that you might have, classic memories. So a lot of the stuff is like stuff that Photos has always done, but now what it's doing is kind of just presenting it in a different way and kind of putting it all in one place. Before, these were all like buttons at the bottom that you can kind of tab through. Now it's all in one main interface. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, the Photos app did get a nice rework. Next up, I want to talk about some of the new features that iMessage got. Notably, the one big feature that people were touting about is the ability to now finally have the ability to schedule messages. So if you write a message, and it has to be an iMessage, you hit this plus button now, and if you hit more, you'll see the ability to send later. And then it'll allow you to kind of schedule out a message to be sent. So you can see here, I can send this tomorrow at 9 a.m. You can schedule it pretty far into the future. Actually, it looks like only up to today's the 12th. So it looks like there's like a 2-week plus mark. So the idea that you might be able to like remember everybody's birthday and pre-schedule messages, unfortunately, will not be the case. But as long as you have like a 2-ish week notice, you should be fine. And then you could schedule it. So day, time, and that's about it. You can't change a year or month. Obviously, it looks like there is definitely a limitation at the moment. Now, if you want to cancel that, you can just hit that X there. One thing to note, at least in my initial impressions of this, I wish they made this so that if you just held the send button, that would pop up. That makes more sense to me versus hitting this plus button, having to hit more, and then send later. I feel like it's a couple extra clicks where they could have made that in a way where if you hold the send button, that would allow you to schedule it. I'm very used to interfaces like Slack that kind of have similar UI, UX. So I feel like, again, small nitpick, but now you do have the ability to schedule messages, which, again, nice life convenience, I guess. Now, iMessages also got a couple of other updates with like the ability to react to messages and stuff like that a little differently. I know it also now has the ability to use RCS, or like rich communication services, to allow for like media, like pictures and audio and stuff for those who don't use iMessage, aka the green bubble folks. So you can text friends with Android and stuff like that and have a better integration when it comes to like sharing media overall. Now, a couple other things. There's obviously a lot of different changes when it comes to iOS 18 across the board. I'm going to skip over some of the things that I'm not really using right now. I don't use the default mail app. I use a third-party one, but this isn't even officially out yet. So there's some more categorization updates, which is always nice because the main email app that I use called Spark has this kind of feature in it. Safari got some tweaks under the hood. And then some like individual apps got launched with iOS 18, notably passwords. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. This is kind of a competitor with things like 1Password or LastPass. I think on a personal level, on a business sense, like those apps are still going to be used within those circles. But the Passwords app, one that, as you can imagine, I don't want to show off too much on my end, essentially just showcases how many logins you have stored, codes, passkeys, Wi-Fi, etc. The benefit of something like this is if you're in that Apple ecosystem, Mac OS, iOS, iPadOS, everything's tied in anyway. Like all of your passwords are shared. Now you have one app to be able to access that, see all of that. As somebody who is very, a huge proponent and somebody who highly subscribes to password managers, it's a life changer and definitely makes life easier. So I can see something like this for people who don't necessarily normally use password managers. Being able to integrate this and have this will be a game changer for a lot of, again, folks who just have iOS and use a Mac and so on and so forth. You can also share passwords and passkeys with other members through Apple's ecosystem. So again, it's a nice touch here for Apple to kind of add this officially into their ecosystem. Other updates I can't speak much to, but did get updated. Maps got some new topographic maps and trail networks. So for like hikers, I believe you can even create your own custom routes now and track that. So that's always nice. Saving those for offline access is always nice, especially if you're like hiking or traveling in remote areas where signal is going to be low. That's always nice to have. Game mode. This is one that there's not too much information out on this just yet. This is something that I believe is already in macOS, and it's going to take more advantage in like AAA titles that are coming out for the phone nowadays, which is just crazy to think that that's a possibility even nowadays. But game mode is essentially going to like mute a lot of background notifications, mute certain services in the background behind the scenes to give you better performance, minimize background activity to sustain what they're calling like higher FPS and workload. So in actuality, I don't know the full technical scope of this and what the difference is in terms of what frames you're getting not in game mode versus what you will now get in game mode. Game mode also helps reduce audio lag and latency, apparently, with things like AirPods. So yeah, that will be something to look out for if you're a big mobile gamer. Outside of that, again, a lot of other under the hood updates, things like Tap to Cash with Apple Wallet got a fancy new little interface. The Apple Wallet overall got some interface updates. AirPods, I use AirPods Pros. You now have the ability to do hands-free Siri interaction, so you can say yes or no by simply nodding your head because it uses, I'm assuming, the accelerometer built in. Some spatial audio updates, and then Notes. Notes app actually got some pretty big updates across the board, and this is actually one that I was testing earlier that was pretty interesting. So if I go into my Notes app here, you can see it has now ability for like built-in, and maybe this kind of plays into the Apple Intelligence. If I was making a list where I said like games equal, let's say, $50 and consoles equal $60, you can do basic formulas in your Notes app where you say games plus consoles equal, and it automatically knows to take those keywords in context and automatically give you the total. So you can do some sort of basic expense, if you're just doing a quick expense list or jotting things down for a group, you can have it quickly calculate at a basic level. And again, you can get more complex on this. I'm just using this basic expression to showcase a little bit of what's capable. Notes also got some other updates where you can like highlight text now. You can also live transcribe or record audio sessions with your Note and generate live audio transcriptions, which is nice. I believe there's also going to be a tie into this with the phone app. So when you're taking phone calls, you can kind of live transact this. It's funny, a lot of like apps that I use in my work environment and things that like transcribe Zoom calls and things like that, it seems like Apple is just kind of baking it in now to their operating system, which ultimately makes sense. Now, outside of this, iOS 18 got a lot of other updates that I'm not mentioning. There's apps like the Journal app, there's things like the Apple TV app, and even the Home app, which I'm actually more excited for, getting a lot of new features and upgrades across the board. Ones that I'm not going to fully dive into here because either A, they're not fully out, or B, I haven't been able to fully test them. Notably for things like the Home app, the hands-free unlock is going to be a feature where you can, they call it, magically unlock your door as you approach it by carrying your iPhone in your bag or pocket, or even if you're wearing your Apple Watch. This is nothing new. Apple Home Automation has had this before, but it's adding that express mode for things like Home Key and things like that, that kind of hands-free, essentially, to allow you quick access. Now, I imagine the smart home devices and the accessories that you're using will have to support this mode, but again, all updates are good updates. So across the board, I think iOS 18 is a lot of nice, convenient features that a lot of users have been wanting for quite some time, as well as just features that iOS should have had, like further customization and whatnot, well beyond. There's a lot of other stuff in here that I didn't mention, but is worth kind of flagging. I know the other one that kind of got some press is the eye tracking feature that they announced with the accessibility. I was testing this earlier, and honestly, I might have not calibrated it great here, and it's going to be kind of hard to show this perfectly on screen, so maybe if I kind of assume the right angle here, this is eye tracking if I turn it on. So it's going to ask you to calibrate this dot, and you have to do this every time you turn it on and off. So I need to look at where the dot is. It's going to keep on moving that dot, and I have to kind of focus on the dot. And the idea here is this is indeed an accessibility feature, so more accessibility is always better, always good to see, even if it's not fully fleshed out. But it's got a lot of press in general. It's kind of also like a more futuristic item. Things like Vision OS obviously support this with the headset, but the idea here is you can navigate the phone hands-free to some degree. So you can see here now that I'm calibrated, I can look up, I can look down. You can see I have Snap Item turning on right now. And I believe the idea here is when you look at something long enough, it knows that you want to essentially click it. I've had kind of mixed reviews of this, or like feedback. See, right now it's accidentally turning off the eye tracking, which is funny. So it definitely spazzes out a lot, and it's not perfect, but you can see it's trying to detect the movement there and then, highlight the items that I might be looking at. You can see the idea here where it has shortcuts where you can kind of do scrolling and things like that. But from an accessibility perspective, again, as that gets more built out, as the tech gets better, it's always a nice feature to have. Now I need to turn it off. before I forget that I have that on. But yeah, all in, iOS 18 has some, surface level updates, nothing major, nothing crazy. The customization that a lot of people are talking about is just, again, a small little thing that is finally on iOS and on Apple hardware. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the other features roll out. I think the notable ones, like the big ones that people are talking about, we'll see is like Apple Intelligence and how truly intelligent that is, and is that really going to bring Siri back to where it should be. But other than that, let me know what your favorite feature release was for this update in iOS 18. What are you looking forward to getting the most? And with that, as always, ladies and gentlemen, consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already for more content to come. Like this video if you enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching.